Hi everyone, I'm John Pett, author, speaker, and performer.
And I'm Jeff Civilico, entertainer, comedian, and almost as much fun as John.
And together, we're on a mission to take you on a journey that explores and reveals the critical elements for you to survive and thrive within the digital transformation.
We will be here to guide you, to engage you, and get you involved.
To take your questions and get the answers from the experts and execs.
So grab a beverage, get comfortable, and get excited.
Because this is MEF Infinite Edge.
Today we've got top service and technology experts joining us to talk about the latest developments in the secure access service edge market. It's time to get sassy. Welcome back, everyone, to the MEF Infinite Edge series, episode number 3. I'm Jeff Civilico, your host and unpredictable tour guide. You've been warned for the next 3 episodes. But before we go forward, let's take a quick look back at some of the awesome episode highlights so far.
Interconnect, automate, operate, accelerate, because those are the keys.
We believe that this digital transformation journey is all about customer experience transformation and ease of doing business with our customers going forward.
Networking is cool again, right? Networking is cool again. Networks fuel the digital transformation.
All of them need high bandwidth. Professional, teenagers, younger, they all need bandwidth.
My vision is that we can bring this capability, that specific slice of a certain SLA level, on demand.
But I think that's the opportunity for Sd-Wan, is really to scale more smaller form factor devices, lower cost points, to help with kind of those power users in that work from home.
Early on in our Sd-Wan journey here with customers, we learned that you cannot have an Sd-Wan conversation without a security person in the room. I mean, you can, but you're going to have that conversation again.
We have a couple of different challenges to that. One is that the perimeter is dissolving. People are moving all over the place. The second is that threats are evolving.
SASE services are really expected to provide an optimal combination of networking and security for a given subscriber by really distributing the networking security functions dynamically across the SASE chain.
All right, well, it's great to be here with you for episode 3. I hope you had a chance to check out episode 1 and 2. I thought they were fantastic. And you got to meet my good buddy, the MC, John Pett. I gotta say, you folks were really into all the magic he was doing. It kind of started making me think, like, maybe I need to learn some magic to host the MEF Infinite Edge series. So I rose to the challenge, ladies and gentlemen. I practiced 6 hours a day for the last 3 weeks for this moment, okay? I'm considering this my international magic debut. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if there are any watching, I give you the Tau Vanish of mystery. 1, 2, 3! Ah! Right? I know what you're thinking. Thinking I missed the other guy. No, you're probably thinking, Jeff, that was incredible. How did you do it? Well, obviously, I'm not going to do the same trick twice. A real magician would never do such a thing. Fortunately, I'm not a real magician. So one more time. Ah! But that's it. That's the last time. Not doing it again, okay? Get out of here. All right. Maybe I should stick to what I'm good at, which is juggling. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to explore the many challenges and opportunities for delivering networking solutions that are optimized for a work from anywhere world, naturally, we pivot to Sassy. Now, in this episode, we're going to learn how the Sassy concept adjusts for a fundamental change in how enterprise users access business systems. We'll explore how Sassy shifts the focus from site-centric to user-centric security. And we'll also discover how Sassy can maximize the availability of high-performance edges and security clouds. Lastly, we'll get up to speed on the latest developments in SASE service standardization and the potential emergence of MEF-certified SASE services. Woo! Let's kick it up a notch here. Oh, there you go. How do you think about that, Mr. Pets? That was a lot to juggle, even for me. But hey, don't worry. We've got a stellar lineup of speakers and experts here to help. And to amplify this great experience, we've also got each other. Now, don't forget to connect one-to-one with other attendees and our amazing sponsors by using the chat window feature to your right, and by using the networking and meet my peers feature to your left. Now, we're going to kick things off with an executive interview involving Jeremy Wubbs, Senior Vice President Marketing, Bell Business Markets at Bell Canada, and Mauricio Sanchez, Research Director, Network, Security, and Data Center at Dell'Oro. But first, a message from Bell Canada.
We don't have to tell you how important technology is to your business, or that you need to be more agile than ever to compete in today's fast-changing landscape. You know that. But we will tell you why Canadian businesses choose Bell. We connect evolving workforces, support changing business needs, enable new ways to collaborate and communicate, help you meet changing customer expectations, and help protect you against emerging threats. For over a century, we've empowered businesses coast to coast, investing in our network to move Canadian business forward, providing best-in-class solutions and expertise, leading through transformation after transformation, advancing how Canadians connect with each other and the world. Together, we push the boundaries of what is possible, raising the bar for what a true partnership can be. That's why businesses choose Bell. We empower you to do more and make more.
Welcome, Jeremy. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to see you, Maurizio.
I'm delighted to participate with you in today's MEF Infinite Edge session. In our time together, I'd like to hear your thoughts on SASE, which has become one of the hottest topics in the industry. So the first question is, as businesses experience a shift in how they do business, how and where employees work, we're hearing more and more about SASE. What do you see as the key drivers for SASE?
Great question. I think there are really three key drivers I see for SASE. I mean, the first one is tied to remote or hybrid work. Everyone's obviously at home now. We're going to move back into the office over time, but we're not all coming back. I think 50 to 75% of people work remote permanently or only come into the office a few days a week. So, remote work is certainly a big one. I'd say the second one is cloud. Organizations are shifting to the cloud, and I think they're doing it faster than they ever were before. That'd be the second area. And the third is partnerships. We all have partnerships in the businesses we run, and we connect our networks to other company networks, and that requires a different posture around security. So those are the big three I see as drivers for SASE.
Thanks for that. It definitely matches the research that we do here at Dell'Oro. Moving on to the second question. As customers begin to consider these new realities, what are some of the challenges around that?
Yeah, I think the challenges, I'd say, I spend quite a bit of time with our customers. I run some of our customer advisory boards, and I think the big challenge is, how do you shift from where you are today to a new security model? I think it's a challenge to go and start to relook at different architectures. I think many clients also worry, am I as protected as I'd like to be? I think 3/4 of our clients have concerns around the security posture. Am I investing enough? Am I protected? And I think whenever you start to look at something new like SASE, you start saying, is it better? Is it the right approach to go and take, as well as, hey, I've got a bunch of investments that are already there. Do I just continue to invest there? Do I change direction? So I think it's new. So, it requires some thought, and, when everyone's concerned around security at the same time, sometimes it's challenging to think through something new, and, you're kind of worried about sleeping at night with your current security posture.
Definitely. No, yeah, security is always top of mind. And we know gaps in security pose significant risks and how damaging they can be. You also mentioned executives aren't necessarily confident in their existing defenses. Tell us how you see Sassy being a difference maker.
Yeah, I think it comes back to those, those kind of drivers, and how do you lift off from those drivers of the hybrid workforce to, cloud and partnerships. If you're in the cloud, then why isn't your security model also in the cloud, right? And I think there's a huge opportunity to create a security model and framework that's comparable to the new network architecture and the things that you put in place. And Sassy is cloud based. It requires and creates a very simple way to manage and administer. I think it also it also applies universally. So, in today's world, many clients, have a different security approach and posture for remote workers than they do for a branch office. Like Sassy addresses that. So whether I'm, working at home, whether I'm in an office, I actually have the same security posture in a Sassy environment. And if I'm on the road somewhere, again, same security posture. So, it parallels the cloud model that they're shifting to. It applies security in a more universal way, whether it's at wherever you happen to be. And then it's also got some really great, abilities to go right down to the user level, really, in policy management. And I think that's where also, when you think about partners, okay, what's the security posture or policy I want around, this partner, around this user? You can get very, very granular as well. So, it really addresses a lot of those concerns, and ability to be more flexible and to have very specific security policies across the different use cases that many CIO or CISO, quite frankly, has to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
I see. Yeah, definitely sounds like greater scalability, agility in the security postures. Shifting a little bit, so you talk about the shift to cloud, and we know that that's also driving SD-WAN to be the architecture of choice more and more. What role does Sassy play in securing a solution like SD-WAN?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think as clients shift to SD-WAN, they don't realize quite how parallel like Sassy is to SD-WAN. Like, you think about SD-WAN, it's attractive because of the flexibility. It's it's tied to being able to connect and leverage cloud architectures, and it helps to manage the performance of the the workloads, the network environment. And I think Sassy is actually very, 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 very parallel to that, right? When you think about it, security can be applied across any user, right? And it's built in a cloud model, similar to the way SD-WAN is. And then when you think about the ability to manage the performance of different applications, well, Sassy is able to manage the security posture, of different users and even different applications and different locations. So like, they're very, very parallel. You wouldn't want to shift to cloud without also having a cloud-based security model, which is really what Sassy is. I'd say, in our case, we've actually even started to combine those. Like, our SD-WAN offer has a Sassy component to it, so that, it's very complementary. You can take SD-WAN, you can take Sassy with it. And, we've even gone a step further in some cases, taken, platforms like Zscaler and put them inside our network, so you can actually even improve the performance of, of the cloud and of the Sassy environment at the same time. So I just see they go hand in hand. Like, you're going to shift more to cloud. You're going to leverage SD-WAN to do that. You want Sassy, right? They go together, and they're sort of the perfect combination.
Can you expand a little bit more about what your organization is doing and embracing Sassy and deploying it to your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I'll extend a little bit on what I mentioned a minute ago around Zscaler. So, about 2 years ago, we launched our virtual network services product offer. So we virtualized the edge, and we connected that both on the internet and on our MPLS network. So, providing very robust virtual network service capabilities with different SD-WAN use cases. As we brought that into the market, it became very clear. Customers were asking, okay, well, how do you provide enhanced security? Can I take SD-WAN to the remote worker? Can I take it to different branch offices, to the cloud? What we very quickly realized is, and I touched before on Zscaler, we very much realized, hey, there are some great cloud, Sassy platforms out there, but you really want to get those tightly coupled to the SD-WAN solution. So, we took the technology, we actually, within our own network, in our own COs, brought Sassy platforms, inside the MPLS network, inside our internet fabric, so that we give our customers much better performance around, both SASE and SD-WAN. So, as the traffic flows, to the cloud providers or to your own data center, it's going through the SASE cloud platforms right inside the network, right close by the workloads to get the best possible performance. So gives the customers all that policy management, kind of all the flexibility that we talked about earlier from a SASE perspective, but just does it faster, more cost efficiently because it's tightly coupled within the network, which, has been a differentiator for us. And I think something a lot of carriers are doing on a global basis.
Thanks for that color, Jeremy. Definitely, it's not just a hypothetical, but becoming real in your organization. So a lot of change is coming, right, in terms of exciting change, and it sounds like really good change. But we know in the early onset of any of these technology inflections, standardization and standards is always a topic that comes into view for a lot of customers. I know that you're part of the MEF board, and I see that the MEF is doing a lot of important work in shaping industry standards and supporting enterprises as they embrace digital transformation. Can you address how you see MEF supporting the transition to SASE and its role in securing SD-WAN?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly, I'm proud and excited to be part of the MEF board. I'd say, the MEF's done a fantastic job. It's kind of why I was excited to join, around the journey to SD-WAN, really to, kind of lead the way to help set and guide those standards. I think, if you're in the domain of setting and guiding the standards around SD-WAN, you have a responsibility, really an obligation to make sure SD-WAN has a security posture and framework around it. You can't go and drive in the industry standards around SD-WAN and say, hey, good luck to everybody on security, right? So, there's a big role to play for the MEF to help, establish and create those standards. And when you think about, what I mentioned, not just the remote work, but the cloud, well, partnership's a big element of it as well, like understanding that partner ecosystem and SASE helping to secure the partner ecosystem. And like the MEF is also about partnerships, right? It's about, how to carrier interworking, creating global platforms. So you need a global security posture to go with it. So, I think there's a big role to play that the MEF is filling in, obviously on SD-WAN, now evolving into SASE, and I'm glad to be part of the board and helping to kind of drive that with, I'd say, a fantastic MEF team, and even having our Bell teams involved in that. Like we're the only Canadian provider that's involved in those WAN, SD-WAN standards like 70.1, and we see ourselves a big part of also helping to drive those security standards going forward. They're very important to the industry. You can't have one without the other. You can't drive transformation without having the appropriate security to go with it. So it's an exciting journey.
Definitely is, and I'm really glad to see that work happening and look forward to seeing its developments. Well, Jeremy, thanks for joining me today. That's all the time we had on this topic, and look forward to seeing developments on SASE in 2021.
Great. Thank you very much, Maurizio. Good to see you.
Thanks.
Mauricio, great interview. And Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing your perspective. One of the key takeaway quotes for me is, if you're in the cloud, why isn't your security model also in the cloud? Hey, I know our audience will have some questions and comments for you both posted in the chat window. But now let's keep it going here by hearing from Shenna Seneca-Tarnish, VP Cybersecurity Product Management at Comcast Business, who will be interviewed by Ron Westfall of Futurum. But first, this cool video.
So you're a small business. Or a big one. You were thriving, flourishing. But then, okay, time to think, plan, pivot. How do you bounce back? You don't. You bounce forward with powerful connectivity, serious and reliable internet that lets you go bigger. And better with more sharing, more making. Whoa, more that. More talking. The entire time you got this. Okay, less talking and more doing. All driven by the largest gig speed network in America. And even if the power goes down, your connection doesn't. But what if no one's in the office? Bring the office to them. But is it secure? Sure, it's secure. Okay, sounds great.
So how do I do this?
You don't do this. We do this together. Bounce forward with Comcast Business.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to our executive and conversation session. And we are very excited and most pleased to have Shenna Tarnish, the Comcast VP of Cybersecurity Product Management, joining us today. So Shenna, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Ron. Thank you. How are you?
Well, not too bad. We're bearing up with winter, and this is actually stimulating our conversation because I know the folks out there are very interested in what Comcast is doing in terms of security. In fact, I think it would be a great idea to kick off our conversation on how you would characterize networking security landscape today, and the types of security-related conversations you're having with the customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I would characterize the cybersecurity landscape as sprawling and ever evolving. And the conversations that we've had with customers the past year have largely been around, this change to working from anywhere and the risks associated with phishing and malware, ransomware in that scenario. Also, a lot of school districts, we've talked about DDoS attacks, that are impacting distance learning. But in all cases, businesses of all sizes and all verticals are being impacted by this new normal.
That makes sense. In fact, from what I've seen, certainly the distance learning has been a major issue, and that is including security on collaboration platforms such as Zoom. In fact, we've seen terms like Zoom bombing enter our lexicon, and who knew entering to 2020 a phrase such as that would become mainstream. And so how is Comcast handling this new explosion of work from home demand?
I'd say, we're helping customers with this evolving, work from home or work from anywhere by developing options for them, anywhere from providing a business internet connection to their homes for, dedicated access versus the residential lines, which includes security, our Security Edge product, and that does the DNS filtering and blocks any malicious sites on the internet. But also, you can take that all the way up to giving businesses the ability to add Sd-Wan connections to a residential residence and include UTM functionality that's integrated or cloud-delivered security services along with secure remote access. So, we think the game is having options because while everyone's in this certain scenario, this is the new norm, not everyone is at the same level of maturity of their work from home. Some people have more capabilities enabled than others, so options are key.
Oh, no doubt. In fact, I think it's fascinating that here we are in this new era of work from home, work from anywhere. And I believe that even after the COVID-19 pandemic recedes, and that we see what can be characterized as a return to normalcy, that this approach will actually be pretty much across the board. It will be part of really the entire workforce across the entire planet. And so this is leading to my next question is, what is Comcast's approach to Sassy? How is Comcast going to capitalize on the emerging Sassy technology? And how do you see the relationship of Sassy with the SD-WAN implementations that are already out there today?
Yeah, I think like security landscape is evolving, the Sassy implementations are also evolving. The framework allows providers like Comcast to develop solutions that on leading edge platforms and provide customers with options. Again, options are key to secure their business via an edge device, a cloud delivered network service, or a software client. So these options, combined give you that SASE functionality. That's what this framework does for us. And I see the relationship of the two of, SASE and SD-WAN as an extension of the network agility that we get with SD-WAN and take that to the cloud. Two components, they both complement each other and have security as the wrapper across a distributed architecture. I would say with workloads, shifting to the cloud, and now most of the workforce, no longer being in corporate facilities, cloud security is incredibly important. SD-WAN and SASE together bring geographically disparate endpoints together with a common security policy, whether you're in a coffee shop or you're in a branch office.
And to your point about SASE and SD-WAN having a lot of interworking capabilities that SD-WAN provides as foundation for SASE to evolve really intuitively and naturally for many IT decision makers out there. How do you see, Comcast really taking advantage of SD-WAN to really incorporate SASE with more of the customers out there?
I believe SASE is an evolution of what SD-WAN has already brought us. And, we're going to continue bringing that forward. SD-WAN brought an important application awareness and, traffic shaping and steering to wide area networking. And SASE builds upon that by extending into the cloud and, securing us end to end. SD-WAN and SASE also further evolves businesses into zero trust and multi-cloud and edge computing journeys. And how Comcast is working with customers and evolving them together is just continuing that evolution with the customers, taking their SD-WAN, adding those components that they need outside of the branch office, and and continuing to grow that into their multi-clouds with eventually ensuring that we have CASB protection and so forth. So I think just being on those journeys with those customers into these deeper security protections for their businesses.
And that's a valuable insight, Shenna, that we're not just looking at, for example, network-based firewall, but we're looking at zero trust capabilities. That is ensuring that the enterprise, the business, has security inside and outside the organization based on policies that they can implement according to their needs. So this is definitely an encouraging development that SASE is able to integrate all of these valuable security capabilities. And that includes cloud security brokering. And I think that definitely is going to be a major role in terms of how businesses approach adopting SASE, is having that flexibility to integrate all these essential security components. I believe that it's important to know that Comcast was one of the first companies to achieve MEF 3.0 SD-WAN certification. And from that perspective, from Comcast's perspective, what is needed to really take advantage of this standardization certification process? And equally important, what do you anticipate are some of the challenges that can come in terms of using SASE standardization to really gain more acceptance of SASE technology?
Yeah, I believe that standardization of new technology like SD-WAN and new frameworks like SASE are beneficial to all, not just the end consumer, but also the technology providers and the service providers, all those that are involved in architecting these solutions for business consumption. Standardization also allows for more efficient integration among technology partners involved, and increasing consumer confidence that they're going to select quality products or solutions that have been vetted as secure, safe, and reliable. When there's a lack of standardization, I'd say for a framework such as Sassy, it could cause a lot of confusion in the marketplace, which I think there somewhat has been already of, someone's Sassy product versus another Sassy. Are they including the same components? Are they not? So that confusion then also causes less adoption. So we really want to move towards standardization. And I think the challenges that we'll face or that we'll have to overcome in testing and certifying a Sassy service or framework is participation, the methodology, and the ease. Participation should be voluntary and positively challenge, the process to achieve the highest quality outcomes. And standardization methodology should be driven by not only partners and industry associates, but consumers themselves of, what's important to them. And then for while certification shouldn't be easy, it shouldn't be so difficult that it's painful or, unreasonable investment. So it's got to be accessible and reasonable to participate in for all those involved.
Yeah, I believe that is fundamentally true. I think we've seen in the past where we didn't have the certification, the standards backing, cause technologies to quite simply stall out. And actually, this is something that has to be avoided. So thank goodness for MEF-W117 enabling exactly those assurances that you're pointing to, the need for the industry to know that when they conduct an interoperability test, first of all, it's something that they do on their own volition. But when they do commit, that they'll have the confidence to know that their technology is going to go through a vetting process that is solid, but is also proven by an organization that is very experienced and very capable at doing this. And Shenna, thank you so much for joining us today. Valuable insights, key takeaways. I believe everybody's going to be very pleased with the conversation we had in today's session. Good day, all. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me, Ron.
Thank you, Shenna and Ron. I'm hearing common themes about the perfect partnership of Sassy and Sd-Wan, and also the importance of standardization for accelerating market growth and building customer confidence in Sassy solutions. Now, as we wrap up, two thought-provoking points of view from leaders at Bell Canada and Comcast Business, both MEF 3.0 certified providers, we now turn our attention to the analysts. After all, a journey along the edge requires that someone check the road conditions. And here to do just that is today's dynamic duo. That's right, it's Ron Westfall, Senior Analyst and Research Director, Futurum, and Mauricio Sanchez, Research Director, Network Security and Data Center at Deloro. Let's hear their take on this emerging, well-hyped Sassy market.
Good day and good morning, everyone. I'm Ron Westfall, and I'm here with my distinguished colleague, Mauricio Sanchez. And I believe it's important to talk about Sassy and what the market is implicating for the entire industry. And as a good starting point, I think it's best to understand what does Sassy stand for. And it stands for Security Access Service Edge. The term was first developed by Gartner back in the summer of 2019. And when I first saw the term, I thought it was SASE. In other words, yet another acronym for our industry to deal with. It sounded like an academic fraternity. However, I have to say, I was very relieved to find out in short order that the acronym is pronounced Sassy. And I think this gives the technology an extra marketing flair that audiences warm up to, that people like to discuss. It's fun. It's interesting. In other words, Sassy is not as dry as, say, as talking about MPLS. And on that note, I think it's now important to establish why Sassy is so important to our industry. And that is because fundamentally, SASE combines network connectivity and security functions with subscriber policies to meet the highest levels of performance and assurances acquired by today's enterprises. In fact, not only is SASE meeting these new demands that the enterprises are imposing on the suppliers in the ecosystem, it's also enabling service providers to come up with a new service that can enable profitability and also help them through the profit per bit squeeze that they've been experiencing over the last few years. And now with that said, we also have to understand what is it about SASE that is not only generating this interest, but what are some concerns or barriers that could be associated with SASE? And on that point, I'd like to turn to Mauricio to get his perspective on, are there concerns about SASE? Is it being overhyped in the market today?
Thanks, Ron. I've been in the industry 20 years, and I guess I'm always a little bit skeptical whenever a new acronym shows up, right? I love your analogy to MPLS. I don't know about you, but I lived through the 2000s when network access control was all the rage. So for when I first heard SASE, I thought, oh my gosh, we're back to where we were 10, 15 years ago. And I know that eventually some people were calling NAC as whack. Because it just people were trying to deploy it, and it didn't work out the way that the expectations painted it at the beginning. And I think SASE, we just got to be careful that because it's a shiny chrome right now, and that we set the right expectations. However, the pain points that people are facing today are real ones when it comes for network connectivity, as well as from a security perspective, and it's all been accelerated because of the pandemic, because you and I here are working from home. And so now your entire workforce has been distributed throughout the landscape, throughout the world, frankly. And so the pain points that now were already existing prior to the pandemic have only become more acute. So when you start thinking about the new technologies that are coming together in the shape of SASE, there is an opportunity for it to make an impact to solve the problems that people are facing today. Again, it's a network connectivity problem, which gets into network transformation. It's a data protection and security problem that gets into how do you make sure that data keeps within the confines of the logical enterprise boundary. But at the same time, as we get through this, we have to make sure we have a realistic perspective and make sure the expectations that we place are the right ones, because last thing we want, like I said, is getting back to where we were 15 years ago when network access control was all the rage, and then people really started turning cynical and saying things like NAC is whack.
Very excellent points. And I think we do have to pay attention to the hype cycle aspect here of SASE. From my perspective, I think SASE has a firm foundation, and that will have an enduring, lasting influence across the industry. And that it begs the question, why is that? I think, first of all, that SASE is enabling a shift to user-centric security. So we're getting away from a device-centric security approach and enabling, again, organizations in the ecosystem to take a more holistic approach to security. And this is quite simply going to be essential, particularly in the cloud era, when we're looking at hybrid cloud and multi-cloud implementations and all the challenges that entails. In addition, I think the standards aspect is very important to look at. Already, SASE has standards backing. The MEF has been very diligent about making SASE a more accepted technology across the ecosystem. For example, MEF has already established the SASE Services Definition Project, also known as MEF W117, to enable this. And I view the MEF as having the pedigree to really advance SASE, because we've already seen it perform this same effort with technologies such as optical transport, such as carrier Ethernet, and naturally Sd-Wan. So this is definitely encouraging. Another aspect about the standards is that we've seen technologies such as NFV, I believe, not gaining broader support because of fragmented standard support and the lack of a robust interoperability regime. So right away, we're seeing SASE avoid that type of mistake. In addition, I think it's also important to note that SASE really is an extension, a logical evolution of existing technologies. We're not establishing a brand new technology that requires some heavy lifting and forklifting in order to adopt. Again, it's blending the technologies that you pointed out, Mauricio, and it's avoiding, say, the theological debates of the past, say IP Ethernet versus ATM and frame relay. We saw how that turned out, and it did not turn out favorably for ATM or frame relay, partly because IP Ethernet had that robust standards backing. And so at this point, I think it's important now to take a look at Sassy, it's the market, and what is its market size and market potential. And for that, naturally, I turn to you, Mauricio, to share some very important data points in that regard.
Thanks, Rod. Yes, we love our numbers here at Deloro. And so we've been tracking a number of markets that, as you pointed out, Ron, are Sassy is not necessarily a completely new basket of technologies. It's really a transformation of various markets that are coming together and benefit of being able to service the secure connectivity needs of the modern enterprise. So in my analysis, what I looked at is that how is an architecture that's Sassy getting deployed? What's a technology basket that it's pulling from? And I identified three. So you've got SD-WAN technologies, which presumably are still somewhat a new kid on the block, but they've been around for about 10 years now. The other one is proxy-driven technologies from the security side. So secure web gateways is the classic embodiment. And the last one is a firewall. So the perimeter-based technologies that have been deployed for over 20 years. So when you look at these three markets and sum them up over the course of the last several years, they're on track to probably about nearly $15 billion by 2024. Now, I get asked, are these markets going to combine into one gigantic Sassy market? And what I tell people is no. When you think about your perimeter-based technologies and the evolution of that perimeter into this modern enterprise edge, it's not going to happen overnight, and not everyone's going to do it. Now, there's a lot of enterprises out there that we talk to that are thinking about Sassy, but really are saying, well, I know what I do, and it's not necessarily yet completely broken. So it's going to be a while before I move. So for us, the way we look at Sassy is more an evolution of these three markets combining in order to in service of the Sassy solution space. And in my analysis that I put out last year, I say that by 2024, we're probably looking at a market opportunity that grows from tens of millions into about a little north of 5 billion. So it's going to grow very quickly, and it does have some upside potential because, as I pointed out, if you combine firewalls, SD-WAN, and secure WebGate technology, you're looking at about $14 billion. So somewhere in that range, and with the rate of adoption being the key marker to how fast this whole market transforms into a Sassified end state.
And yes, these are very impressive, valuable numbers. And I think it also brings to mind, what part of the industry is going to be most receptive to adopting a Sassy technology or a Sassy framework. From your perspective, Mauricio, who do you see as the leading adopters? Who are going to be the people who are going to help drive Sassy adoption over the next few years?
That's literally the billion-dollar question, Ron. But and when we're talking about into our in our surveys and talking to the people out there that are on the front in the trenches, so to speak, we see the small to medium enterprises, because if you think about it, those are the guys that are really pressed to solve these tough problems and are looking for that easy button, which Sassy as an integrated play is very well set up to service. Larger enterprises eventually will embrace it, but you've got to consider that they've got legacy institutional hierarchies, best of breed for firewalls, best of breed for networking and SD-WAN, best of breed for security operations. So those guys that we foresee are going to take a little longer. But in our conversations, we see that the silos are breaking down, and they're talking to one another and saying, "Hey, we got to break this down and service our needs with a holistic." So eventually, those guys will come around, but it's definitely the small to medium enterprise that are going to lead the charge.
Yes, excellent insight, and I think that will definitely help with the sales and marketing prioritization of the organizations out there that are addressing the Sassy market. And I think it's also valuable to note the dichotomy that you noted, Mauricio, in terms of there's a cloud aspect, there's a security aspect, and then there's the SD-WAN aspect. And in each of these different areas, there could be characterized an approach to the SASE market. And from my perspective, the cloud approach is clearly advocating a cloud-first implementation. And that is enabling an enterprise-wide cloud strategy that includes the migration of workloads to the cloud, and also enabling the scaling of new operating models, and also, very importantly, that access to multi-cloud implementations will become increasingly important, not just for the smaller businesses, but also further out for the large enterprises. And I see organizations such as Zscaler and VMware as proponents of what can be characterized as a cloud-first approach by simply offering gateway as a service or firewall as a service that allows that control point to any cloud based on the business policies of the customer and taking advantage of these purpose-built cloud capabilities. In addition, I view the security approach as emphasizing the protection of distributed users and applications against internal and external threats from all levels. And that includes the network, application, the data, and the user levels. And that's very important in today's work from home models, as clearly this is well suited for addressing the work from anywhere or work from home models that are prevailing today because mostly of the global pandemic. And Mauricio, from your perspective, when you're looking at, say, SD-WAN vendors who are approaching the market, how do you see them being able to compete and meet the needs of SASE demands out there?
Thanks for the question, Rod. That's actually very curious you're asked. Just yesterday, we were interviewing and getting a briefing from an SD-WAN vendor, and what they told us is that there is no really SD-WAN market per se, because in order to compete in today's SD-WAN market, you got to offer security. You got to offer the capabilities that you outlined. And so really for them, they've already become a player in the SASE space. And so they're leveraging their knowledge about how to do cloud-based networking. So this particular vendor already had a cloud-based SD-WAN overlay that they sell to their customers, and they've been layering on top security capabilities like the ones you just enumerated. And so we see that as being a common general phenomenon across a number of SD-WAN players who see that in order to remain relevant in the conversation, they're starting to layer on a significant amount of security and creating those partnerships wherever if they don't have that security pedigree, to be able to service the emerging need to their clients.
And I think for me, the one key takeaway from our discussion is bet on SASE. And for you, Mauricio, what is like the one big takeaway for the folks out there to take away about SASE?
Well, I go back to what I said at the beginning, is that we got to be careful with this shiny chrome, but there's something here, and it's not necessarily going to be a sprint where you're going to go to the shelf and grab your favorite SASE product and deploy it overnight. It's really a journey. It's reinventing and transforming a number of layers in the IT organization, and so people need to embrace that mentality that they're not going to get to an end state overnight. Rather, it's going to be a conversation that probably already started last year with the pandemic, and now that people are thinking, what's the post-pandemic normal? It's the perfect opportunity to be able to think, so what is my network and IT and security architecture going to look like for the next 10 years? So SASE should be a top consideration.
Excellent point. We definitely have to factor in the pragmatic aspects and look at it across the board. And on that note, and on this overall positive perspective on SASE, I say thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Gentlemen, thank you for your shrewd analysis of the market. You've reminded us that SASE is a long-term journey, and now is a great time for enterprises to rethink their security architecture for the road ahead. Now, let's shift gears. As anyone on Tinder can tell you, it's very important to have standards. So up next, MEF CTO Pascal Menezes will discuss MEF's industry-leading effort to standardize SASE services and its importance for enterprises, service providers, and technology vendors.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this great Infinite Edge series that MEF has been producing every month. Today, we're going to cover a great episode on Sassy. And today's session, I'm going to cover basically a high-level overview of what MEF is doing in Sassy and why I believe Sassy is so important. And our co-editors of this project, Daniel and Neil, will cover much more details. So let's just get started. Number one is, I believe Sassy is part of a greater challenge happening in the industry. And basically that challenge is, as users work from anywhere, they want to be secure. They want to have a frictionless environment wherever they work from. They want to make sure that obviously the applications and their experience is working perfectly, but more importantly, they can be secure and not have to worry about security. So in this end-to-end vision, wherever they work from to wherever they want to go, security plays a very, very critical role. And with that, MEF has been working on 4 pillars in this area of network transformation. Is driving digital transformation. Number one is a very high-speed underlay, interconnecting that high-speed underlay with automation, and we call that automation, east-west automation sonata. The second is on that high-speed underlay, adding that very agile overlay of SD-Wan, and we've been standardizing SD-Wan very much in all kinds of areas, universal SD-Wan, SD-Wan 70, the service definition, and other areas. And today I'm going to cover specifically the vision we're working on with managed service security services on top of SD-Wan, specifically on Sassy. Now, all of this is being driven with the emergence of the edge, and that edge is a 4th pillar we'll be driving more on in MEF, and I'll be covering in the next episode on Infinite Edge. So let's just get going on specifically why Sassy is so important and get to the details. Number one is, as cybercrime is over $1 trillion industry and users want to work from everywhere, the idea of why not put security into the cloud? Why not deliver security as a cloud? And that is absolutely true. And with the emergence of the multi-access edge compute environments coming into the POPs and the service providers' POPs and central offices, we can deliver this service from a cloud security cloud-like offering right from those edges. And that's exactly what Sassy is deliver security from the edges and not have to put security at every site or on their device or every branch or at the home. Now, in reality, MEF has been working very heavily with this definition of Sassy, this cloud model that Gartner first published or talked about. And what we've been doing is actually developing the first standardization of Sassy. But with Sassy, there also has to be this idea of trust or identity access management. Not anybody can just access the Sassy cloud to get to wherever they want to go. They need to first prove identity, and with that identity, decide through that identity what access control, where can they go, and so on. So we've also been working on zero trust, and that is connected with Sassy. And in future work, we'll be adding in extended XDR, this extended detection and response. And this is going to be very important also. And while it's a future work item, I'm not going to cover today, it will plug into the Sassy environment. And I also believe that Sassy, while it's delivered from the cloud, plays another critical role, is that it's multi-tenant in nature, it's cloud native in nature, and it basically delivers all the security functions that's needed from a cloud-like agility from the edges and not have to be loaded from at the sites wherever the users are. Now, while this might be the vision, in reality, I believe that security is not just going to be at the edges, it's going to be sprinkled throughout. And what you'll see is that security will be at the endpoints, security will be even at the CPE where the users are, because there will have to be some kind of firewall in the routers or at the SD-WAN edges and so on. There'll be certainly security with Sassy, and there'll be security at the hyperscale clouds, wherever the destinations that they want to go to. In addition, a very important part of Sassy is, and why this is so important to be delivered at the edge, is before you can get to any destination, including the internet or any clouds, your data centers, basically users have to access the Sassy cloud, get scrubbed, make sure that everything is secure, and they have access to wherever they want to go, and they provide identity, and then they go with their flows and their applications, and they use their workflows from those clouds. And I believe that's the most critical part of what Sassy is. It becomes the gateway to all these multi-cloud destinations, private, public clouds, and it provides that security in a very, very cloud-like, agile way. So with that, let me hand this over to Daniel and Neil to give you more details of what MEF is doing in Sassy.
Thank you, Pascal, for that excellent overview and vision, context for our Sassy managed services work in MEF. I'm Daniel Bardlev, VP Strategic Programs and overall owner of the Sassy program at MEF. And I'm joined today by Neil Danilovich. Neil?
Thank you, Daniel. Good to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm principal architect at Versa Networks, and I'm co-editor of the world's first standard document that surrounds the Sassy managed services that is being developed currently at MEF.
Wonderful. Neil, we see 3 questions as being important for a discussion in this episode of Infinite Edge. I think the first one is, what's the difference between a Sassy framework and a Sassy managed service? The second topic I think we should cover, what is a Sassy managed service? Get that clear for the audience. And the third one is, does a Sassy managed service have to be fully in the cloud? So perhaps we'll start off with that first topic. What's the difference between a Sassy framework and a Sassy managed service in your opinion?
Yeah, so these are all very excellent questions and very central to the conversation that is developing around the idea of Sassy and what it means. You know, Gartner first kicked off this whole idea of the Sassy concept back in late 2019 when they published their white paper. And in that, they talked about a framework that wasn't something revolutionary, brand new. It was actually taking existing concepts and then putting them together from networking and security in a manner that was meaningful and was actually going to transform the way that enterprises were transitioning from solutions that were vendor specific and architectured in a certain way. And now we're coming to this idea where security and the functionality of the cloud and using cloud compute resources to actually drive some of the security. So it's been a big deal in how you actually transition this from a centrally located set to these clouds. And we need to look at how that transformation will actually help the impacts of the performance, and so we don't get this tromboning or earmarking back to a certain data center.
So the framework is what was described by Gartner, and it certainly struck a chord. But I think they're giving guidance really for what enterprises, how they're going to re-architecture their security and networking together, I guess. And what we're talking about is a managed service at MEF. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say that what we see is that as this concept of Sassy is coming together, there doesn't seem to be a individual vendor or an individual service provider that's got everything that needs to be done in a meaningful and significant way when it comes to Sassy. So what we see is it's going to be very difficult for an enterprise, even who has a huge IT department, to actually wade through everything that it needs to be done in order for the networking piece to be right, the security piece to be right, and the policy piece to be right, in order to actually provide this. So what we see in the near term is that this managed services is probably a way for enterprises to augment their IT departments to actually start to bring on the idea of a Sassy service.
So it's sort of do it yourself versus managed service. What we saw in Sd-Wan, I think, sort of back 4 years ago, it was predominantly enterprises, do it yourself together with, I think, a lot of the vendors, perhaps including Versa Networks. And then we saw that crossover around about 2019, I think, where Sd-Wan managed services sort of came more into the picture and started to predominate. Is that what you see happening here, that sort of that crossover with Sassy, let's call it do it yourself, or enterprise framework and Sassy managed services offered by service providers?
Most definitely. So, very large corporations that want to go and do it themselves and have a huge IT department have a dearth of expertise. And so they can actually figure out the necessary needs for how to interconnect the current cloud services with their current security services, with their current networking, whether they use SD-WAN or they use some sort of other advanced networking technology. They have that ability to do that. Where the managed services helps make it more easy for SMB and small businesses to actually embrace this is the managed services actually done a lot of that work to figure out what piece parts work together, and you don't need a huge IT department. So we see that managed services as being a great way to get this SASE concept out to a larger audience and a larger usage base versus just doing it yourself.
Well, we're doing a lot of work in MEF. You're co-editing the first standard in MEF around SASE managed services, what we're calling MEF-W117. Perhaps it would be useful to give some insight to the audience about what the central components of that standard that we're developing is around actors, subjects, targets, and so on. Do you want to perhaps quickly outline that?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things we have to remember is that this idea of a SASE service is a true marriage between security and networking, right? So we definitely have the first two elements. You have to have connectivity, right, in order to provide this service. The second thing is we have to have security functions and security policies that actually are going to work to provide this connection, right? And the last one is we need the policy, right? The key portion of this is all policy driven. In simplest terms, we can say that one actor wants to operate or perform an action on another actor. The first actor we call the subject actor, the second actor we call the target actor. So if you think of it in this way, it's like, I'm working from home and I'm accessing the company's ERP system, right? I'm the subject actor of the company's ERP system. They're the target actor. And let's say as the subject actor in the classic model, I need to create a VPN from my laptop to the company's private cloud. And from there, I would actually be routed to the ERP. This created a major headache, especially when we see what was happening in the pandemic area. The VPN systems just really couldn't handle the overload, right? So now we have to go in through the VPN, then we have to go to the provider edge, and from there you get this tromboning. If my company is located in San Jose, California, I'm located on the East Coast of the United States. Clearly, in the VPN scenario, I'm going all the way across the United States, even though the resource could be in a cloud that's actually sitting closer to where I am.
So I think the concept of subject actor and target actor has really greatly simplified the whole story for me, because the truth is that we sort of tend to think of that use case of remote workers that you mentioned, and it's a very important one, especially what we saw in 2020. But it's now more and more about devices and applications. So, it might be human, it might be a machine, it might be software. They can all be subject actors, and that this idea that you're going to have all these different types of subject actors acting on devices or services in the cloud is very important. And that SASE managed service basically sitting there between the two, making sure that it's only the right subject actors that can access the right target actors, I think for me was a great simplification.
Exactly. I mean, this whole idea is it's not just Neil or Daniel's laptop that's actually accessing the system. It could be any IoT device. It could be a turbine, it could be a camera, it could be even an application that's just running on a server that needs to be able to access another application in a cloud set, right? So we're just doing some sort of provisioning or some other type of operation that needs to be done. This combination of the subject and the target is really starting to explode, right? the number of things that we have to actually look at when we're trying to figure out who is authorized, who is authenticated, and who, really making sure that we understand the identity is becoming more complex as it goes on.
So perhaps we should just wrap up with that last question of, is the SASE managed service all in the cloud? Are the security functions in the SASE managed service all in the cloud? And I think that this is something that really is worthwhile clarifying, because it's about distributing security functions the way they need to be distributed, right? They can be distributed all the way down right to the user device or the campus edge or whatever. So perhaps could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so one of the things that Gartner always said is that SASE has to be a cloud-provided service. And while I agree that cloud security is a major component for any SASE service, because obviously some of the workloads that are needed in order to provide many of the advanced security functions are completely CPU and memory intensive. So having that elasticity that comes from a cloud service is actually absolutely imperative. One of the things that a SASE service absolutely positively has to do for an enterprise is actually make it easier to make that elastic edge secure. So it doesn't make sense that everything's in the cloud. What the SASE service has to do is put the appropriate security functions at the appropriate place based upon what the enterprise policy is. And so that could mean putting, say, a firewall all the way down in an agent on a laptop, or at a SD-WAN edge, you do some of your security functions, and then you do your zero trust framework and identification of the actors and all that type of stuff at that edge, but then allowing the more advanced security functions to actually be done in a cloud that is actually instantiated close to where the actor is.
So I think this is a great opportunity to a call to action to the audience watching us today to get involved in the project that you're co-editing, MEF-W117, the definition of what a SASE managed service is and its attributes. And I think we'll wrap up there and hand back to our hosts. Thank you very much, Neil.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for everyone watching.
See, when you have standards, you won't be disappointed. It's true for SASE and for dating. Thanks, Pascal, Daniel, and Neil for updating us on MEF's leadership position in the SASE standard space. We invite everyone in the audience to visit MEF.net to learn more about SASE standardization and discover how you can engage in SASE, Zero Trust, application security for SD-WAN, and other related projects. Now, friends, if you have any follow-up questions or comments for these gentlemen or any of our speakers today, really, please feel free to chat them up in the window to the right of your screen. In the interim, let's pull this car over, let's grab some refreshments, and we'll meet right back here after a short break. But first, a quick message about MEF's certification programs.
Digital transformation. Massive boost in network capacity, scale, resilience, and performance. Transforming industries, enabling new, innovative applications and business solutions. MEF 3.0 services are critical enablers of this transformation. Service providers rely heavily on robust, standard MEF underlay services, including carrier Ethernet, optical, and IP. When enabled by MEF LSO APIs, they dynamically support the delivery of overlay services including SD-WAN and digital services such as SASE and Zero Trust security, all coming together at the rapidly changing network edge to deliver a frictionless experience from enterprise to cloud. Supporting the adoption of MEF standards are MEF certifications for service providers, technology providers, and industry professionals. Widely recognized and respected credentials.
It's definitely accelerated a lot of different aspects of our business. The bigger initiatives around digital transformation, cloud, mobile first, and SD-WAN really picked up steam.
I cannot overstate the importance of the certification. And MEF has a huge role to play in this. It has taken a much more difficult task and made it simple.
MEF 3.0 certification enables service and technology providers to demonstrate conformity with the industry's highest service standards. Certified technology suppliers can accelerate onboarding into service provider and enterprise networks, getting to revenue faster. Service providers improve their competitive positioning with business customers by using common terminologies, reducing feature confusion, and demonstrating compliance to critical service functions.
We see a real value in in bringing this type of certification to our customers, and I'd encourage everybody in our ecosystem, every provider, to actually pursue this effort.
Building and scaling networks for digital transformation requires a myriad of contemporary skills. MEF Certification for Professionals defines and validates the expertise required to deliver revenue-generating services central to this requirement. Individuals with these skills are uniquely positioned for career growth and advancement. MEF certifies professionals for services including Sd-Wan and Carrier Ethernet, with Sassy on the horizon.
Welcome back to MEF Infinite Edge. In this segment, we're celebrating digital transformation in action with the MEF 3.0 Proof of Concept Showcase Awards. 7 POCs from 18 participating companies competing for glory. And back in action, our industry analysts to help us judge this intense contest. And I've really got a lot to juggle this time. I definitely cannot do this by myself. Release the Kraken! You talking to me? Yeah, I'm talking to you. I need your help. With what? Announcing the MEF 3.0 POC Showcase Awards. Weren't you listening? Oh, well, okay, in that case, let's get started. You first, naturally. Okay, starting with the award for innovation. And the winner is... End-to-End Slicing for Extreme Services by NTT Labs, NTT Communications, and Okinawa Open Laboratory. All right, next up is Business Impact. And our winner is... Remote Employee Access to Cloud by Amartis, Nepheli, Sparkle, and Versa Networks. Our third award is for Market Game Changer, and it goes to Orchestrated Multi-Edge Clouds by ADVA, Juniper Networks, Microsoft, Netcracker, and NTT Communications. I gotta say, you're doing a great job, other me. Oh, thanks. Couldn't do it without you. Now, the award for Edge for Verticals. Our winner is Sd-Wan and 5G with Network Slicing by AT&T, Ericsson, VMware. And lastly, for the best presented POC, both in the showcase itself and its digital presence before and after, the Judge's Choice Award. Revolutionizing live events by ADVA, Equinix, Juniper Networks, and Spectrum Enterprise. Congratulations to all of our MEF 3.0 Proof of Concept Showcase winners for their incredible achievements, and to all of our participating companies on a job well done. That's right, and a big thank you to our participating analysts for their time and effort in this year's judging. Now, if you caught the POC showcases back in February, you got to see all of the companies in action. If not, check it all out on demand at mef.net/POC. All right, back to your cave. Bye-bye. I'll let you know when we're ready for the next set of awards. The POC Awards had some of us sitting on the edge of our seats. But now it's time to jump into our first deep dive session of the day. A great discussion on addressing customer needs and aligning on Sassy. Let's hear what some of our experts have to say. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Here we go with our next deep dive session. This is addressing customer needs. It's time to align on Sassy. Now, as always, we have three industry experts joining us today for another insightful discussion. We are thrilled to have with us Vasilis Sanidas, VP Security Solutions Management, Global Presales and Technology Engagement, PCCW Global. Mark Cohn, Principal Technology Strategist Virtualization, Spirent, and Jonathan Nguyen, VP Field CISO Fortinet. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for being a part of the MEF Infinite Edge series. We're excited to chat with you today, so let's begin. First question, we're going to start generally here. Why is Sassy in demand, and what are the key benefits of Sassy services for end users? Let's go Vasilis, Jonathan, if you would, please.
Okay. As enterprises evolve, they are increasingly less dependent on the private data center. With applications and data moving to the cloud, either private or public, and users are likely to be working remotely as in the office, IT can no longer limit to enterprise network to connect just branch offices to data centers. Sd-Wan technology enables a number of new design principles, but is not sufficient because it does not cover the needs of remote users as well as security aspects. Today, organizations, due to the pandemic, COVID-19, and not only, require secure, uninterrupted access to network and cloud-based resources and data, including definitely business-critical applications, no matter where their users are located. This change in the way modern enterprises cover business objectives requires a new innovative architecture. This architecture could be achieved through Sassy. Sassy combines the functions of network and security solutions into a unified global model service. I consider that this convergence to be driven by customers' demands for simplicity, scalability, low latency, and definitely enhanced security. Some of the most obvious, let's say, benefits of SASE could be cost and complexity reduction, better network performance, security improvement and performance, less overhead delivering a better user experience, local enforcement because SASE provides centralized management with a distributed implementation. However, I believe that the biggest benefit of SASE is the increased agility in accelerating business velocity.
So, SASE is really a reflection of digital transformation. And what we've seen over the last 10 years is a fundamental shift of our compute. So previously, we owned the data center. We owned the infrastructure. We did that organically. But as you shift computing to cloud, we're no longer routing that traffic and backhauling it back to a data center, which is less and less relevant, right? And so now we're accessing cloud resources and services from the cloud, from multiple edges, from the home edge, mobile edge, branch offices, et cetera. And so as we move the compute to cloud, that drove demand for SD-WAN. So we're not hub and spoke architectures no longer. We're using application-aware, software-defined wide area networks to really accelerate network performance and lower costs, improving outcomes and experiences. The corollary to the networking piece really is SASE, the secured access service edges, and the ability to provide security to those edges so they can safely and securely and seamlessly access those cloud services. Now, SASE has all types of form factors, but the key benefits are the integration capability of network security with network management to optimize performance across the LAN edge, the WAN edge, and the cloud edge. One of the key tenets about digital transformation and success there for just about any organization today is that in order to deliver the outcome and the experience, the compute and the cloud has to be optimized and really integrated with the network access protocols, which is SD-WAN, and all of that has to be secure. So I think the real benefits across the board right now for users of all sizes is the ability to provide seamless access from those edges and to really apply in a uniform manner those zero trust principles that have been in existence for 10 plus years now. And all that yields better security, better network performance, and optimize computing in the cloud. And that comes right back to what we're all looking for today, which is better business outcomes, better customer experiences. And that's what really SASE delivers.
Great insights there. Thank you both so much. Let's move now to talk about your organization's approach to SASE. I'm going to go back to Vasilis to start us off here, and then Mark, Jonathan, please.
Although SASE standardization is still pending, is not yet ready, PCW Global already has in place some critical components of SASE, which incorporate as a single integrated holistic ecosystem, including connectivity, networking, and security elements. And all of these elements will be supported by an advanced automated core platform to ensure broad visibility and granular control across the entire network. Our journey is ongoing, and however, the three main areas that are undergoing further evaluation, improvement, and development are technology and applications in cooperation with our technology vendors and partners like Fortinet, the company of Jonathan, automation utilization, utilizing the digital platforms and digital marketplace that will help us to operate in a much more accelerated way and deliver value to our users. And last but not least, the customer-facing concept, increasing the confidence and the value of our end customers, our users.
And as the leading provider for network and security test, Spirent is developing a comprehensive solution to optimize the configuration for cloud security functions deployed in a SASE architecture. Spirent is also a leading contributor to the security testing for the MEF, and last fall we initiated the Security Test and Certification Incubation Group, which is exploring how we can drive more comprehensive testing in the MEF security standards, along with the MEF initial security certification that's being considered.
Thanks for that question, Jeff. So our approach at Fortinet around SASE is built around this concept of security-driven networking, which is a convergence of networking and security to drive security across the LAN edge, the WAN edge, and the cloud edge. And so when you deconstruct SASE, there are a couple of pillars. There is the zero trust access pillar. There is the component around integration with SD-Wan, the network management aspects of it. There's also components in the firewalls of service, secure web gateways of service, and CASB. And the unique thing about Fortinet is, yes, we have the ability to deliver those capabilities across multiple form factors, right? So not everyone is going to have the same SASE journey. Not everyone is going to be a cloud native in day one. So the ability to offer flexible consumption models, form factors, and licensing models, but yet have the same look and feel and that holistic security strategy with network management, plus a presence in the largest public clouds in the world, that's what our approach at Fortinet is with regards to SASE.
Fantastic. Moving on now. Let's talk about the factors that are impacting SASE adoption. Jonathan, why don't you start us off, and then we'll hear from Mark.
So absolutely, the factors that are driving SASE adoption is really cloud migration and cloud adoption. So as you begin to shift that compute from your data centers and the cloud becomes your new data center, you have to think about your architecture. And when you network and security always follows the compute. So if you're going to shift the compute, SD-WAN follows naturally. And as you shift the networking to SD-WAN, you're going to think about security. You're not backhauling all that traffic back to a centralized gateway in a data center. You now are thinking about, how do I provide seamless access from all these new edges, right? The remote locations, the mobile worker, the branch office, the regional office, the factory floor, the rise of edge computing. Those factors that drive the need to access and consume services from the cloud drive the need to secure those edges. So SASE is the most effective way. It's a concept about how we provide security to those edges. And the way I look at it is, look, whether you choose an appliance to deliver that, whether you choose a web gateway to do that, all of it has to be natively integrated with SD-WAN, right? And so you have to reduce complexity. You have to have integrated holistic visibility and control. And by the way, you have to have that natively, meaning like in the marketplaces across those largest public clouds. And you need to apply zero trust principles. And so all that is driving that. So the pandemic accelerated those digital transformation macro dynamics, right? Those macro trends are only going to be here to stay. Data-driven decision-making, proactive and predictive maintenance and control, all those factors drive more remote access. Edge computing will drive more cloud resource demand, and all of that's going to drive this need to secure that seamless access from these edges that are multiplying. And so, yeah, you're going to see SASE in whichever form factor makes sense for that enterprise continue to drive forward. I don't see that changing for the next at least 10 years.
And I agree with Jonathan's assessment on the factors that are driving SASE adoption. But of course, there are some factors that are hindering adoption at this point. And first and foremost, enterprise end users need an effective means to migrate from their existing physically perimeter-based security architecture to a distributed SASE environment. And since there's rarely a clean cutover, a SASE-based architecture must accommodate a mix of existing security functions that are resident in a data center, hardware-based appliances, and even CPE. Another challenge is the edge cloud environment, which is not ubiquitously available and exposes diverse functionality and performance for the various different instantiations. And then, like SD-WAN, SASE is lacking the degree of standardization and operational best practices that operators have come to expect. MSPs in particular are wary of proprietary stacks and the vendor lock-in they represent. On the other hand, multi-vendor solutions are highly complex to integrate, deploy, and maintain, at least at this time. And on that note, additional tools are required to enable systematic design, deployment, and operations for SASE-based services. And because purpose-built SASE test and management tools do not yet exist, operators are forced to repurpose their existing network and security validation tools, which are proving inadequate to confront the new challenges imposed by a SASE-based architecture.
Well, Mark, you teed me up perfectly here for this next question. Got to ask, why do we need standardized SASE services and a standardized architecture? Vasilis, we're going to go to you first, and then Mark, we'd love to come back to you.
So, very good question regarding standardization. So, while SASE is designed to address the access control and secure one challenges today's organization face, the problem is that very few vendors are qualified to provide a complete SASE solution in the market currently. Moreover, due to the fact that SASE is not standardized, various technology vendors or service providers follow their own SASE model from technological and commercial point of view to promote their strengths. This creates a need for interoperability, standardization, and a set of clear definitions that service providers as well as technology vendors can work with and that end users can trust. Then customers don't have yet a really effective way of evaluating SASE solutions. The problem is amplified when vendors with minimal or a narrow security experience provide SASE solutions, elements, and architecture, and rush to take advantage of SASE as a buzz marketing term. So, one of the biggest challenges facing SASE adapters is the lack of standardization, which can create significant confusion for any enterprise considering a transition to the new technology. So, I consider that standardization is very, very important.
And I agree with Vasilis' comments on the confusion that are caused. And one of the benefits of standardization, which has proved fundamental to the adoption of many new telecommunications technologies, is that providing that common language, which can lead to that dialogue that enables multiple different parties from different organizations to be able to collaborate towards a common goal of creating new standards. And those standards provide the major step toward multi-vendor interoperability that operators in particular are looking for. The emergence, however, of software-driven standards has really altered the standards landscape, and it's ushering in new models for open source, open APIs, and it's also can significantly compress the service delivery lifecycle. And that in turn implies that, dictates that standardization will be essential for SASE, especially considering the wide range of cloud security functions and the diverse implementation scenarios, not to mention the ever-present and ever-changing threats that are in the security landscape. So the MEF has responded to this need by introducing 3 security projects. MEF-88, which is the Application Security for SD-WAN project, defines commonly used security functions that will ultimately be deployed in a SASE architecture. MEF-117, the SASE service definition, defines a managed distributed security service where the security functions defined in MEF-88 will be deployed in the cloud. And then MEF-118, the Zero Trust framework, specifies a dynamic policy-based approach to granting access to the SASE networks, as Jonathan alluded to earlier.
So I think at this point we should talk about what the key components of a SASE architecture are. Would you mind taking that one, Vasilis, and then we'll go back to Jonathan.
The main attributes of a SASE architecture can be considered, first of all, to be identity-driven rather than location-driven. This approach reduces operational overhead by letting companies develop one set of networking and security policies for users regardless of device or locations and all this stuff. Also, to be cloud native, a SASE service should be utilizing a cloud native architecture. However, the client premises that equipment deployment options have to be available. Also, policy enforcement and distributed inspection are critical because SASE not only connects devices and users, but also does the job of protecting them as a security. To support all ages, SASE has to create one secure network for all company's entities, data centers, branch offices, cloud resources, and obviously remote users, mobile users. Moreover, to support global distribution, SASE has to ensure that the full networking security capabilities are available everywhere and to deliver the best possible experience to all ages. And last but not least, to have a global Sd-Wan footprint. One of the goals of SASE is to deliver the optimal possible network performance for all the applications everywhere. SASE involves a universal Sd-Wan service that operates over a private and also public backbone.
So yeah, absolutely. Great points by Vasilis. I think those elements that we spoke about earlier, for any successful SASE platform moving forward, I think it has to support zero trust network access in a number of form factors, be it identity-based, be it appliance-based, right? Or location-based. It depends on what combination of characteristics that user is going to need. It's got to support integrally SD-WAN because it's the security corollary to SD-WAN. The two really cannot be separated. In fact, I think moving forward, we've talked about this for years, the need for network operations and security operations to work holistically. So I think from a technology and a platform and a standard side, we should support that capability. So clearly, SD-WAN has to be integral and supported across that SASE capability. Beyond that, though, the firewall as a service, secure web gateway as a service, and then the CASB capabilities as well. Ultimately, what I'd like to be able to see in any successful SASE platform is the ability to ensure that every request for network access from those edges, which are expanding, are identified, authenticated, validated, logged, and monitored, and using CASB to understand the final disposition of what was accessed. And I think all of that needs to be done in an integrated way. Standards are a fabulous approach because it allows consumers and enterprises to fully understand what is being offered and to judge and see what's best for them. So I applaud the MEF efforts around that. But clearly, foundationally moving forward, we're going to see zero trust, SD-WAN, and SASE as fundamental elements of any IT strategy moving forward.
Great, thank you. I don't know how we got here so fast, but we're just about at time. I do want to squeeze in one final discussion point here. I'd love to hear your perspective on testing and certifying SASE solutions before we bring it to a close here. Mark, let's go to you, and then we'll close it off with Vasilis.
All right, thank you. Test already plays a major role in the development and adoption of MEF standards. For example, certification has proved essential to the widespread adoption of carrier Ethernet and more recently the SD-WAN service standards as well. So certification offers vendors and operators the differentiation they're seeking, at least initially, until more and more players are actually certified. And it also offers an opportunity to validate claims for conformance and ultimately streamlines the procurement process. Today's leading operators would not even consider deploying carrier Ethernet devices that have not achieved MEF certification. Another key area is service activation testing, which has already been standardized for carrier Ethernet and IP connectivity services, and is now being evolved into service readiness testing for SD-WAN. While a similar approach will be applied to the emerging SASE family of standards, there's some major differences between network and security testing. Whereas network testing has traditionally been standards-based, fixed, and employs simulated traffic, security testing is ad hoc, highly dynamic, and uses emulated traffic to ensure accurate results. And to further investigate the role of testing and certification for SASE and all the security services, Spirent is leading the Security Test and Certification Incubation Group, which is already analyzing the functional verification requirements for the security functions specified in MEF-88 and is anticipated to channel requirements back into the MEF 117 and 118 projects for SASE and Zero Trust. And we're also offering or collaborating with the MEF to analyze the first MEF security certification program, an effort that's well underway.
Generally speaking, PCCW Global follows a business-like study and certification approach for various solutions and technologies. in the market in order to ensure that our colleagues are trained and stayed up to date constantly. Actually, it is part of our methodology and mentality. Don't forget that recently PCCW Global certified by MEF for Carrier Ethernet by MEF version 3 and also Sd-Wan. From our perspective, the testing and the certifying of SASE solutions are very significant because they will confirm the quality, interoperability, and the performance of these solutions. Moreover, service providers and also technology vendors will have the ability to simplify the SASE architecture and to benefit from the main attributes of SASE. It is obvious that through these procedures, service providers and technology vendors will have the chance to define technology and solutions gaps, enhance solution performance, and improve the end customer's experience to cover real business objectives and needs. That I believe that is very, very important. Last but not least, we believe that the end customers will feel more confident with the proposed solutions and with partners, as they will acquire some additional criteria for an effective test and evaluation.
All right, and with that, this deep dive session has come to an end. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We certainly appreciate you sharing your time and talent with us for this conversation. And to everyone watching at home, in the office, around the world, wherever you are, we hope you found this conversation insightful and enjoyable. Don't go anywhere. Got a lot more for you. This is the MEF Infinite Edge series. Thank you for watching. Now, you may remember that in episode 2, we talked about the potential problems between SD-WAN and SASE. Could these two lovebirds take it to the next level? SD-WAN was a bit insecure. SASE had no standards. The question for our next deep dive, can SD-WAN and SASE play well together? SASE is emerging as the perfect partner, but can these two really come together to accelerate change and innovation at the network edge? Up next, our experts explore SASE as the natural evolution of SD-WAN. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to our deep dive session. This is SD-WAN and SASE, playing well together. Joining us, we have Rupesh Chokshi, VP Cybersecurity for AT&T, Will Eberall, Assistant VP Edge Solutions Product Marketing Management for AT&T Business, and Craig Connors, VP and CTO SD-WAN and SASE at VMware. Welcome to all of you. And let me first say thank you so much for being a part of the MEF Infinite Edge series and for being part of this discussion. Let's dive in. Rupesh, we're going to start off with you. How are SD-WAN and SASE impacting the WAN network, and what are customers looking for?
So it's a great question to get us started, right? And we have seen kind of tremendous amount of ups and downs over the last 12 to 18 months in terms of the pace at which the digital transformation is accelerating. It's at the speed of light, right? Customers are looking for new ways of supporting a hyper-distributed enterprise, right? Where the workforce is distributed, work from home, the brands are transforming, the omni-channels are coming into play, and how do you conduct commerce and business? So when you step back and think about that from a wide area network perspective, huge implications, right? So we are all not only kind of entering, but we're living in this world of a totally, software-centric, cloud networking and cloud security kind of an atmosphere, a space that we're in. And there are, 3 or 4 big trends that I want to kind of bring back into the conversations. And then we'll address a little bit about, why the customers are going where they're going. So the first is the multi-cloud environments, right? The multi-cloud environments have become very, very sort of, mainstream. They are, highly automated, new data demands, the workloads are shifting. These are elastic and customers are adopting them. And in fact, over the pandemic, we saw even more increased adoption because cloud networking and cloud security were the key drivers for crisis response, for the ability to kind of set up the enterprise while you're dealing with all the shifts and changes. We then saw a huge amount of, need or demand on, this concept of work from anywhere or work from home. And what if my mobile workforce is going to be in this kind of phase of transition for a long period of time, right? Do they come back to the office? Do they all work from home, etc. So highly distributed, workforce that requires very different architectures that are needed, which then creates the whole need of a zero trust network, right? The zero trust network will play a very important role in terms of, I got to secure the endpoints. What if I have business IoT endpoints? All these transactions have to be secured at every point in time. And now the data centers that I invested in are no longer sort of, the center of the network because of all of these different trends and going back to highly distributed, enterprise that I'm supporting. So when you think about these, right, and you say, okay, what else did we learn? So what we learned at AT&T was 440 plus petabytes of data on an average day on our network, 440 petabytes of data, 20% increase, post-pandemic, right, or during pandemic. Now, phenomenal growth. We saw, 2,000 IOCs or, points of compromises with Alien Labs monitoring what's happening in the threat landscape. So you start to see all of these, attack vectors coming back. So then you say, okay, now let's talk about this framework of Sassy, which is bringing some of these things together. We have done a lot of great work with SD-WAN and bringing that software centricity. And now the convergence of the SD-WAN with security, with sort of the Sassy framework allows the customers to truly adopt and scale. And that's where I feel we're going. That's what the customers want. And it's a rapid race.
Great. Thank you so much, Rupesh. All right, next question is for you, Will. In the industry, we're seeing SD-WAN and security becoming more closely integrated. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Most definitely. Yeah. It's a very interesting time to see the convergence of both these technologies. They truly are better together, referenced in, the title around this. I've heard it referred to as peanut butter and jelly. I think, Rupesh, you may have coined the peanut butter and jelly phrase before. Who doesn't love peanut butter and jelly? So when you think about AT&T and where we're at as it relates to these technologies, we're a global leader as it relates to managed SD-WAN and VMware being a big part of our managed SD-WAN space. We're a global leader in managed security services. So we've got a unique lens to kind of both these elements and how they integrate together in meaningful ways for our business clients. And, over the journey, it truly has been an evolution of this integration of these technologies, early stages of SD-WAN adoption. I would say that the integration was not to the full capabilities of how the value you can realize from integrating SD-WAN with security. A lot of the adoption models were hybrid networking, augmenting private MPLS with internet dedicated shared internet elements. So driving down the overall cost structure of the network and, using the value of SD-WAN for brownout capabilities. So improving the resiliency of the application and the network performance element. But a lot of the security elements, clients, we didn't see them do true, cloud offload and secure internet offload. A lot of the times they were still using their big security stack in their data center by tunneling in and going through that measure. That was kind of the path of least resistance. But over time, we started to see kind of a tighter integration, IT starting to work with security operations and co-collaborating on that architecture of the future. So it's not just the network architecture, not the networking edge points, but also the security framework that's going to transform with that. And it truly is an evolution. So even though, still a lot of the applications may reside in their data center, so they're coming into that head end, but over time, they're starting to augment their security architecture with cloud security elements. And we saw a huge uptick, as Rupesh was mentioning, with the pandemic, the elasticity of cloud and what that means from a security perspective and a pure connectivity into these applications for users that are no longer just in that traditional branch, they're working from anywhere. That provides tremendous value. So I think that's accelerated the integration of both SD-WAN and security. And a lot of times, this, like I mentioned, this is kind of that evolution mindset. But over time, I think clients, as they're augmenting their prem-based security infrastructure with cloud, they're looking to managed service providers maybe that have that core expertise and that can help them in that. So that's been a big part too. There's a lot of the solutions, like I mentioned, not only just managing the SD-WAN functionality, but also helping them manage and do that interoperability and integration with the cloud security elements too. That's been a huge value to our business clients.
Great, thank you, Will. Craig, over to you now. How do you see the integration between SD-WAN and security with controlling features such as VPN, remote access, and web gateways?
Yeah, so what's been really interesting about the emergence of Sassy, and I'll call it post-pandemic, because post-pandemic, our way of working shifted, right? And it shifted overnight. And in the last episode, I mentioned the heroics that IT teams had to do. I talk about the VMware IT team, where on a Friday afternoon, they said, all right, 30,000 employees are going to work from home starting Monday. Be ready, right? And so these teams all over the world, they had to really rapidly shift how they were supporting their workforce, moving from a small number of offices to this vastly distributed workplace. And they did it through heroics and rapid shifts in what we were doing. And now we've sort of taken a step back, taken a deep breath. We're looking at what is the right way to architect these networks for the long term. And how do I bring in those elements that are very critical? So remote access versus zero trust, right? So a traditional network-based VPN client versus maybe a per app secure access zero trust solution where I can selectively choose which applications a user can access rather than giving broad-based network controls. And advanced security techniques like network threat analytics, like cloud web security, like next-gen firewalling. These all have different use cases that are applied in different ways. And one of the great things about Sassy is, as we're making this shift to this new normal of working, where this Sassy cloud-delivered model is really useful, it's also helpful in that it gives us all these tools in our toolbox. If I want to augment my users with a different remote access technology, with a different advanced security stack, it's not like the old days where I had to send a new firewall out to all my branch offices and deliver new hardware to deliver those capabilities. They're already accessing our cloud points of presence. We're just rolling out these software use cases and facilitating them. And that's really, to the points that Rupesh and Will made about the convergence of SD-WAN and security, taking that software agility that we showed with SD-WAN and bringing it to security, which will allow us to not just handle this new normal, but whatever the next pivot happens in the industry, be much better prepared for it because we've built a much more agile footprint to make those turns on.
A lot of great insights there. Thank you so much, Craig. Next question, I'd love to hear all three of your perspectives on how do you see the industry standardizing SDN security and policies to advance SASE framework services centralization? Craig, let's start off with you if you don't mind, and then we'll go to Will and then Rupesh.
Sure. So one of the fascinating things for us at VMware has been the way that SASE has been adopted in the customer base. We usually talk about crossing the chasm and innovators, and you have a certain subset of customers that you expect to be the first ones to adopt a new technology. But again, because of this transformational shift that's happened in the way that we work and the way that we have to facilitate those use cases, it's made SASE kind of the obvious choice for a wide scope of enterprises that you wouldn't naturally think of as being early adopters of new technology. So customers like large financial organizations, customers like healthcare hospital organizations that are really struggling to learn how to adapt, how to shift the way that they support their users, they've embraced SASE and been some of the early adopters of a technology in a way that they weren't before. And I think, as this goes forward, we're going to look at that standardization, look at how MEF can bring standardization to the market. We want to make sure that when a user buys a SASE solution, they know what they're getting, and that we can differentiate folks that are jumping on the hype cycle from the vendors like AT&T and VMware that are delivering complete holistic SASE solutions that are actually securing your customers' workloads.
I'll jump in a little more specific around that and really thinking about from an AT&T heritage perspective, as it relates to kind of standards and testing against those. That's kind of core in who we are with our AT&T labs and doing a lot of certification testing. It's not only the underlay transport technologies, but with SD-WAN and some of these emerging technologies, and MEF being a global leader and building the first standards around SD-WAN, we quickly worked with MEF to certify using VMware's SD-WAN technology in that certification. So it's not only important to us to integrate, the emergence of some of these newer elements with the traditional networking side of it, but it's also really important to our customers because, they're relying on that interoperability between these. We're relying on a quality of service and a delivery of an experience for these services. So as the definitions get defined, I think it sets the stage, and Sassy being some of the newer capabilities with integrating SD-WAN into these securities, I think building the foundation against standards and testing those and certifying those lays the way for additional certification of the newer integration of security. So that's what excites me, and I think it paves the way with a lot of the work we've been already doing with VMware and MEF in this space.
Great points, right? Both Craig and Will, thank you so much. Very insightful. And, a few things to just kind of, bring it home. One is, you mentioned peanut butter and jelly, right? So that itself is a standard, right? In terms of what we're all used to. So I think, bodies and organization like, MEF can play a very important role as they bring sort of, the ecosystem together. And why is it important? Because the scale at which we're going to operate, right? Going back to the data points on the amount of data on the network, the types of transactions, the inherent advantages of, cloud and elasticity. So you're processing tremendous amount of information and workload, and standardization helps with that, right? In many cases, right now, all of these enterprises are kind of like, their own VPNs or their own sort of, security parameters, right? As you get into federation, and if you think about the federation tools, you need that standardization for the ability to work with the distributor and the supplier. And, Craig mentioned about, the hospitals had to really, really adapt in a very different way in terms of how they were going to do the work. If you think about the car manufacturers, there's so many industries that are trying to figure out how all of it comes together. And as a leader in networking and security and providing wide area networks and the SASE frameworks, etc., I feel that it is our responsibility to deliver that, right? Because we are providing that very critical infrastructure. So the more standardization, the more scale, the more sort of interoperability and federation, the better off we're going to be in the long run.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we have time for just one last question. Let's bring it home now. I'd like to ask all three of you once again. So if you look 5 years or so into the future, how do you think AT&T and VMware will help drive the changes in the application delivery world, and what is the role of Sassy in that evolution? Let's start off with you, Rupesh, and then let's go Craig and Will to close us off.
That sounds great too. So data is the key building block of this digital economy, right? And it presents opportunity for innovation and increased risk. So how do you kind of work through with this valuable currency? The innovation of the products and solutions are again going to be very important. So then if you look ahead 3 years and if you look ahead 5 years, I would categorize and bucketize in sort of 2 or 3 areas. So one is the convergence is here and now, right? We're already talking about SASE. We're already talking about, deploying different components of SASE. And as 2021 progresses, multiple, full stack solutions will be available, right? So that is more here and now. From there, you start to get into, what does it take to have a more sort of, self-healing network, right? What would it take for those enterprise networks to be even more intelligent, even more adaptable, in terms of what that digital acceleration and transformation is putting on it, right? And then if I go further ahead from that is, we didn't touch a whole lot today, but what 5G will do. It's going to completely change the use cases and the world that we're going to live in. So that sort of, more revolution is just at the cusp of what we are seeing. So technologies like SD-WAN, like Sassy, and those frameworks will further accelerate the ability for the enterprise to adopt these new solutions and significantly have impacts or change their business outcomes, right? Ultimately, it's all about productivity, new revenues, customer experience, and serving the internal customers or clients or the external customers or clients.
Yeah, to dovetail off, Rupesh, you said a lot of it. When I think about the power of what's already there, you look at what SD-WAN brings to the table right now, from deep application profiling, visibility to how end users are consuming which applications, understanding the underlying performance of different network elements, making real-time decisions. It's tremendous, powerful data that's right there. So a lot of the analytics around that data and where we're going broader than this. So now extending that visibility farther and farther into different endpoints, additional data points, then farther into the cloud from a security perspective and having additional data that you're analyzing. And I think that's what really goes to, so instead of this data now becoming intelligent and being able to make real-time decisions based on what I'm seeing across. I see certain users, struggling to connect to certain applications. Is that a network issue or not? Being able to use AI and machine learning to really make that intelligent decision and send alerts to say, hey, this is the pattern we're seeing across certain users. And now here's the steps you can take to remediate those issues, I think is tremendously powerful. And not only, making those alerts, but even to your self-healing aspect of being able to do that remediation automatically on behalf of our business customers. So I think that power is really exciting. And then you combine that with the underlay technology and being able to make real-time priority decisions and carving out dedicated paths, like you mentioned, with slicing and 5G and the power of SD-WAN and integrating with that is also really exciting.
Yeah, I think Rupesh and Will covered it very well. Rupesh set up, the network and the emerging set of services that are being provided, and Will talked about the data analytics that we layer on top to measure and monitor application performance and, what's going on in the network. And I think when you think about modern application delivery and the way application developers are shifting to consume the network, both of those form a really good foundation for the ways that we'll be using our networks 5 years from now. Because as we shift from traditional applications sitting in the data center, applications sitting in SaaS, to containerized modern applications that are distributed throughout the network, what we need for our application developers is an environment where they can deploy their applications close to the users. They can define the security access requirements for those applications. They can define the service level objectives that those applications must meet to deliver quality service for the users, and then be able to have some mobility and moving the applications around so that they are in the right place to serve the user's needs. And all of the things that Rupesh and Will talked about set a perfect stage to do that in a network that is automated in a way that the application developer doesn't have to know the requirements of the networking. They take their application requirements, they provide them to the network solution, and with SD-WAN and with Sassy and with self-healing and these other components, we're able to automatically provide the environment that those modern applications need. And I think all of these things come together over the next 5 years to really change the way we build and deliver applications to our end users.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful way to close it off. Rupesh, Will, Craig, thank you so much. I know I speak for everyone watching when I say really appreciate you sharing your time and talent with us today. We know how busy you are. Thank you so much. To all of you watching from home, we hope you enjoyed this discussion. We've got a lot more coming your way. This is the MEF Infinite Edge series. Bye for now. At the end of the day, SD-WAN is just application aware with a cloudy future, standing in front of a secure access service edge, asking him to love her. The ball's in your court, Sassy. For our final deep dive session, we're taking a look at accelerating service provider deployment of Sassy services. But first, let's not forget the importance of MEF standardized underlay and overlay services in this relationship.
The internet is awesome, but what happens when your applications stall? That's why service providers built private, high-speed networks. The pinnacle of these networks uses MEF 3.0 standardized underlay connectivity services. Carrier Ethernet services alone are now a $60+ billion market. Along with MEF 3.0 optical transport and IP services, providers have technology-agnostic services with great flexibility. We know not all businesses live on a single network. Providers must interconnect. MEF 3.0 services make that easier. Yet enterprises also need dynamic, responsive services with frictionless inter-provider connectivity. MEF LSO APIs address this need, enabling providers to automate and orchestrate both on-net and off-net. What about mission-critical apps? These apps require flexible, application-centric, policy-driven network services that leverage smart underlay connectivity services like Carrier Ethernet. This is the role of MEF 3.0 Sd-Wan services, an overlay service that delivers the policy-based, application-centric solution enterprises need while enabling providers to deliver additional value-added digital services like security, mixed reality, and Internet of Things. Operating transparently over MEF underlay services, even over broadband internet, MEF 3.0 Sd-Wan services use our LSO APIs to harmoniously automate and orchestrate overlay plus underlay, both within and between providers. This is the story of underlays and overlays and how digital enterprises become free to grow. This is the story of MEF 3.0.
All right, welcome back, everybody, and welcome to our next deep dive session. This is Accelerating Service Provider Deployment of SASE Services. And we're very excited. We have three industry experts joining us once again today for this discussion. We have Tom Yin, Head of Networking SASE Business Development with Equinix, Sharon Razov, vCPE Solutions Lead with RAD, and Charles Eckel, Principal Engineer, Global Technology Standards with Cisco. I'd also like to note Charles serves as Digital Services Committee Co-Chair for MEF. Welcome to all of you, and a big thank you so much for being a part of the MEF Infinite Edge series and for being a part of this discussion. We are thrilled to have you here with us today. We're going to start generally here. What is the role of communications service providers in providing SASE solutions, and what do you see as the ultimate end goal? Let's start off with Sharon, and then let's go to you, Tom.
I think service providers are in an excellent position to host SASE security services. They can leverage their network facilities, network locations to enhance business services offerings. They own the network edge where broadband access networks are aggregated, and they can basically provide SLA guaranteed access to the SASE location, and from there on-ramp traffic onto multiple clouds.
Yeah, so further to what Sharon says, really I think the industry is at a pivoting point. I think primarily because previously we have the opportunity now to actually turn a monolithic, centralized, hub and spoke data center centric architecture really into a control and yet distributed with endpoint protection at the edge. So really what this gives the opportunity is for a service provider to be able to bring all of the various different technologies of suppliers, the platform providers, as well as enterprises, even closer together, being able to provide that shared managed infrastructure so that they can actually collaborate to be able to solve real world business problems.
Thank you both. All right, now let's talk about the role your company plays in the SASE market. Charles, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Sharon and then Tom.
Okay, sure. Thanks. Really the goal for Cisco is exactly that stated in the title. We want to accelerate service provider deployment of SASE services, knowing that Cisco will play a significant role in a large percentage of those deployments. So Cisco is a provider of SASE services and of products and solutions that service providers use to offer their own SASE services. And of course, Cisco also provides much of the network gear that forms the critical infrastructure over which SASE services are delivered. So Cisco Sd-Wan and security services such as Duo and Umbrella, they can be used standalone, but are often used as part of a larger SASE services offering of service providers. So for Cisco, the goal is really to grow the market for SASE services and to accelerate their deployment.
Thanks. RAD has recently introduced Asi Cloud Access. It is business access, multi-link business access solution that provides intelligent traffic distribution across multiple links. It is a dual-ended solution. It is comprised of a disaggregated CPE that runs on a variety of hardware options with virtualization, and a software-based cloud gateway that is typically hosted in service provider POPs. With this solution, basically we allow service providers to introduce value-added services both at their customer edge as well as at their network edge, where they would typically host SASE security services, and then we'll allow them to land all the traffic into these network POPs. We took this solution even one step further and designed the solution in a way that most of the intelligence of the solution is hosted at the cloud gateway, the hub, leaving the CPEs simple and low cost.
And from an Equinix standpoint, we really bring all of the best components that from the likes of Cisco and RAD to come together, right? So Equinix provides the infrastructure that allows for these different appliances to be hosted at Equinix, to be able to allow the various different service provider last mile services to use us as the meet me room. And we want to continue with that energy and collaboration between the service providers, the suppliers of technologies, the cloud providers to come together. So at Equinix, we actually allow for these appliances to be deployed. We can also enable a lot of the virtual network functions to be also consumed as a service, keeping up with the cloud speed. And on top of it, we've also made a recent acquisition in Metal. It's called Packet, which we have now rebranded called Metal, which allows a bare metal as a service to be deployed and be able to be consumed directly also on a monthly basis. So we provide a wide range, Jeff, in terms of the various different possibilities of deployments, because I think there is no one size fits all in a lot of these infrastructure needs that various different enterprises will need.
Great, thank you. Charles, we're coming to you for this next one. The topic of SASE standardization has come up in earlier sessions. Now, from your perspective as a co-chair of MEF's Digital Services Committee, it would be great if you could comment on the importance of standardization and say a word or two about the process of bringing a standard to market. Thoughts?
Yeah, well, standards are near and dear to me. And for SASE, standardization is really key to growing the market and accelerating the deployment of SASE services. Case in point, if you just look at MEF-Sd-Wan standardization and the role that's played in rapidly accelerating the SD-WAN market. Now, if you think back a bit to before COVID started and probably a bit before that, there was great excitement in the market around SD-WAN, but actual deployments, they were slowed by confusion as to exactly what an SD-WAN service was, and a wide variety of vendor products claiming to provide SD-WAN solutions. So MEF recognized that and addressed it head on, creating MEF-CECP, which formally defines a MEF SD-WAN service and what it means to be a provider or a subscriber of such a service. This includes common terminology that everyone now uses to describe SD-WAN. And that really unlocked the market for SD-WAN services and established MEF as the place for SD-WAN service standardization. So now with Sassy, I'd say we're in a very similar state. Gartner did a great job of coining the term Sassy and capturing really the minds of the industry. And now MEF is formally defining Sassy services. And there, that'll unlock the huge potential of the Sassy services market. There's work in progress, and some of you may have already seen MEF-W 117. That's the work in progress Sassy standard, and it provides clarity and consistency through the formal definition of what Sassy services are, and it leverages the MEF SD-WAN and application security standards, and also pulls in the work going on in MEF around zero trust.
Love that answer. Thank you so much for all that, Charles. Let's talk now about challenges. What are some of the key challenges for service providers rolling out Sassy services, and what steps can be taken to address those challenges? Let's go to you, Tom, and then we'll hear from Charles again.
Sounds good, Jeff. So the real challenge, I think, behind Sassy is to actually minimize disruption, right? Sassy is actually a journey. This is not a one-stop shop immediately from the get-go. It's a journey towards Sassy. So minimizing that disruption and being able to enter, into the journey and starting with that mindset, really, I think what enterprise needs to do is identify what are its major pain points today, right? With those major points, now and then secondly, you need to also identify what is available within your infrastructure, right? With those two main pivoting points, you now have a starting ground to which you could actually be able to deploy, and start to develop a Sassy understanding behind how you will actually merge towards that ultimate goal. So at Equinix, what we do is we want to make sure that we provide that opportunity to be able to minimize that disruption, right? The disruption towards your infrastructure to transform into a real digital infrastructure that is ready to serve the world, right? And from our perspective, we give you choice in terms of, again, deploying your application, minimizing that disruption. We give you the option to be able to provide and install virtual functions to keep up with the latest technology in terms of cloud services. We also allow you to be able to consume bare metal as a service to be able to install, your unique customization that is part of your business that you would want to continue to nurture and grow with at the same time. So we have a lot of these different options. Ultimately, Jeff, I think what we want to provide from an Equinix standpoint is the number of options to grow so that you could actually adapt and adjust accordingly as your business actually continues to evolve.
Yeah, I think, Tom, you really nailed it there. And, the way that MEF is defining Sassy services and framing it in the context of services that already exist and have been defined, like MEF SD-WAN services. And I mentioned the work going on in application security for SD-WAN and zero trust. I think that's going to help a lot because it's not like this is something entirely new. It's sort of a new way of framing the problem space and looking at and putting together really a lot of the components and technology that's already out there. And of course, bringing in some new elements as well, but it's not like a whole forklift upgrade here. I mean, you can have a continuity. And, just like I mentioned the SD-WAN standardization, the way that reduced confusion in the market, and even going back to carrier Ethernet and what MEF did there, I think the MEF Sassy standardization is going to really help a big deal.
Great. Tom, as Charles said, you really nailed the last one here, so I'm coming back to you here for this next one. What's the biggest question you get regarding Sassy?
I think we get a number of different questions, Jeff, but the two that actually comes up to mind often is, what exactly is Sassy, right? That often actually comes up, right? People they've heard about it. They know that this is a term that was coined by Gartner. it sounds really great, right? But how do I actually then get started? How do I get started on that journey towards SASE? So that's probably the two biggest questions that we often get is what is SASE and how do I actually get started, right? So you mentioned this before is, how do people get started? And I think we continue to be able to, advise our enterprise customers as well as service provider to sort of say, look, the journey is a long journey. This may evolve over several years. This is not a big bang, immediately you could turn on and like a light switch where you're immediately SASE enabled. I think often people says that, yes, I have a SASE solution, but that is a start towards your journey to getting to your eventual, infrastructure need.
I'd like to hear from all three of you now for this next one. How is SD-WAN impacted by the introduction of SASE? Sharon, we're going to start off with you, and then let's hear from Charles and Tom.
So SD-WAN really started as with the motivation of decoupling, the service from the transport network, and was designed for business customers. Hence, was built as an end-to-end, over-the-top solution. And for me, it is really strange that service providers are adopting SD-WAN with this same architecture, basically, over-the-topping their own network, not giving themselves the opportunity to leverage their network sites and build new services. Instead, I would expect SD-WAN I would expect service providers to build intelligent, multi-link business access options that would be integrated into their network and their VPN network and provide access to public and private clouds. Also, with this, they can leverage their network sites and offer services, SASE and others, and also, allow SD-WAN to access multiple SASE options, even not, locking themselves down into one SASE vendor, because SASE, as was said here, is just a term. It's it could host or it could stand for multiple functionalities behind it. So I would expect service providers to maybe host different SASE vendors and provide different solution for each business customer.
Yeah, and I expect that SASE will really expand the role, I'd say, of SD-WAN, bringing SD-WAN into conversations and service offerings that were primarily focused on security, and now adding networking and application awareness into the conversation. So MEF's SASE service definition, within that definition, SD-WAN is an optional component, and it can be used to meet many of the requirements of a given SASE service. But those same requirements can, of course, be met through other means as well. But my expectation, I would say, is that you'll see SD-WAN playing a key role in most SASE service offerings.
Yeah, and Jeff, I think further to what Sharon and Charles has said, I think ultimately at the end of the day, we want to give control back to the enterprises, right? We want to give that control back to the DevOps of those enterprises so that they will be able to get access to how the network could be designed to meet the needs of the application. Ultimately, that is the end goal of what we want to be able to enable, right? So there'll be additional policies that will be introduced as part of the MEF standards that will go into how SASE will ultimately define. And SD-WAN will play a critical role in terms of being able to orchestrate all these various different services to come together. We know that enterprises today use multiple different service providers, whether they will use a zero trust network access from a lot of providers out there, or CDN services. All of these services with SD-WAN will ultimately have to be able to share those controls. And that sharing of control is something that I think from an orchestration engine point of view it's that ability to be able to pass on from one orchestrator to the next so that we know exactly where the controls end and start at the same time.
Got it. Thank you. Sharon, next one is for you. What is the role of SASE in IoT backhaul services?
It's a very interesting question. You know, when we talk about SASE, we talk about identity-based zero trust security for all endpoints, you know, not only end users, but also IoT devices. And currently, you know, with our IoT gateways, we provide cloud access, IoT backhaul to clouds end-to-end. And I think there's an opportunity here for service providers to provide SASE services for businesses that deploy IoT gateways and basically land IoT traffic in their network and then on-ramp it to the cloud. Think, for example, about a smart city use case where there are plenty of sensors for water and commute, and there are CCTV cameras, and you would be able to hang your IoT gateway on a lamp pole and host a LoRa gateway so you can aggregate all those sensors to the IoT gateway, and then from there you can send the traffic to the service provider network, apply security, and then send it onward to the cloud. So I think this is an excellent use case to look at.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. We are just about out of time. I'm going to squeeze in one final question here. Charles, this one is for you. Bring us home. What is the current state of SASE standardization in MEF and the best way to get engaged?
Thanks for asking this one. So really MEF established itself in the SASE space with a great white paper on the SASE services framework, and that came out in the summer of 2020. And very shortly after that, that's when the project to formally define MEF SASE services started. And the working draft for that, I think I mentioned it before, was MEF W117. The W indicates it's a work in progress. And it's due to go out for its first call for comments probably later this month. And there's weekly project calls. Those are on Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific. And any MEF member is welcome to join and contribute. And so we'd love to have you there. The current draft, it really does a great job of laying out the foundation of what will ultimately be a comprehensive standard that leverages the other great work that MEF is and continues to do around Sd-Wan and application security and zero trust. So now's a great time to get involved, join the weekly calls, participate in the call for comments, and even join the next quarterly meeting, which is a great way to meet everyone working in that space.
Hey, Jeff, if I may add to what Charles said.
Yeah, please, Tom.
So I actually participate in that W117 Wednesday morning call that Charles mentioned. And what I saw is a true collaboration among the service providers, the technology vendors, platform providers to actually come together and really discuss the true essence of, some of the terminologies, for example, bring a level of normalization behind some of the wordings, right? Often in the industry, we use, very generic terms, and those terms are often misconstrued when it's applied to, a particular context. So that initial, just normalization of understanding with one another is actually something that I saw as being somewhat enlightening. I think, it really truly brings out, a way for you to be able to communicate between different industries, between different technologies and how it's actually applied. So that was something that is truly eye-opening. We are coming out very shortly with the various different specifications associated to how do you actually define some of these policies that was actually mentioned. So stay tuned for that, and I think you'll see some real good guidance, I think, that will be coming out from MEF.
I should join you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you for that the insight and perspective there. That's Fantastic. Love hearing all of that. Thank you to all three of you. That's going to do it. Our time has come to a close. We really appreciate you being here with us, taking the time to share your expertise with all of us. And to everyone watching, we hope you enjoyed this discussion. Lots more coming your way, of course. This is the MEF Infinite Edge series. Bye for now. Now that's what I call ending things on a high note. A glorious finish from Tom, Sharon, and Charles as they examined the key issues facing service providers on their SASE journey. Well, we've juggled a lot today, right? Pun intended, by the way. From Jeremy and Shenna's executive conversations and analyst insights, from Ron and Mauricio to MEF's perspective on standardization and those incredible deep dive sessions we took together, we've had front row access to some just awesome content. And that only happens, by the way, when you're willing to push the edge. A special thanks to our amazing sponsors, speakers, and analysts for helping us do just that. And congratulations, of course, to our POC winners. Well, I am certainly looking forward to joining you for the next couple of episodes. I have heard through the grapevine, it's gotten back to me, that some of you were not that impressed by my magic trick. You were looking for a little more than the towel vanish of mystery. Well, I know you're impressed with the content today. I want you to also be impressed with me, with my entertainment value that I'm bringing. So I got to kick it up a notch. So, back last year, March, I was quarantined with just like everybody, right? And I started juggling the only things I had lying around the house. Now, fortunately, I had a lot of toilet paper lying around the house. And I know what you're thinking. And the answer is yes, I was part of the problem. But that's beside the point. I got really good at juggling toilet paper, believe it or not. I started off with 1 roll, 2 ply, by the way, because I'm fancy. 1 roll, 2 ply. Then, of course, I added the 2nd roll, right, just like so. And then, of course, I moved on to the 3TP cascade. But I didn't stop there. Oh, no. I did not stop there. I kept going. I kept adding more and more rolls of toilet paper, preparing for this moment where, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to attempt to beat the world record for the most rolls of toilet paper juggled at once. The record is 11. I'm going for 12. Do you think I can do it? Just remember, this is a virtual event, and I can't hear you. I'm still used to the live shows. All right, well, you saw it here first. MEF Infinite Edge. Get ready. Buckle up. Get the cameras out. This is 12 rolls of toilet paper juggled at once. Come on. Oh, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Whoop, whoop. Oh, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, our audience, for tuning in once again to episode 3 of the MEF Infinite Edge series. Hopefully, you enjoyed the discussions and learned something new and useful about the emerging SASE market. If nothing else, remember, you gotta have standards. Don't forget to tune in to our next episode, Edge Computing, bringing the cloud down to earth, airing April 14th. Until then, stay safe, and we'll see you back here as we continue to explore the infinite possibilities of the digital world across the network core, the cloud, and you got it, the edge. Well, that's all, ladies and gentlemen. I'm out of here. Oh!